We all have bad hair days, but not all of those bad hair days end in murder. Welcome to the Film Trap Podcast. I am Chris Gore, and if you've been watching this show on YouTube, you're listening to it, you're not going to notice this. But if you've been watching this on YouTube, you will notice my hair does whatever it wants. I really have no control over this, whatever is going on up here. I do my best. But if you watch the podcast on YouTube, I've noticed, because it'll pop up. I don't actually watch the podcast after I've done it. I've seen it. I lived it, but I will see that my hair kind of does crazy things. So this is a bizarre segue into talking to Rachel Carey, who's here to talk about her film Deadly Cuts, which is oddly the second film this year set in a salon involving murder. This is the second film I have discussed. There's a movie called The Stylist, which I think is very good, Rachel, that you would like. But Deadly Cuts is, The Stylist is more of a very somber, serious horror film. Yours is, I would say, a comedic romp. But it does involve murder at a salon. Tell me, before we talk about hair, and your hair is perfect. Mine is doing whatever. From when did this idea come? Where did the idea for Deadly Cuts come from?
Yeah, I don't know. A million crazy places. I didn't make life easy for myself, that's for sure, trying to do a comedy and incorporate murder into it. But you take the ideas that float into your head. I kind of always wanted to do a comedy set in working class Dublin with working class young women, because it just hadn't been done. You never kind of see that voice on screen. And it's a really, really funny part of Dublin society. Like we call them young ones, like young kind of girls in Dublin in working class areas. So I wanted to make something about them and have them in a position of power. And it was just about finding what is the right vehicle for this. And then, I'm so sorry. Typical. And I do go to the hairdresser a lot.
Take a drink. Take a drink. It's okay. It happens. It happens.
That is typical.
Well, it's later for you because where are you right now?
I'm in Dublin, so it's like 5 o'clock, just after 5 o'clock in the evening. So yeah, I've been on a lot of Zooms.
Well, I feel like what's fun about the film, it's sort of almost like, and it's not like, it's sort of a sitcomish situation, sort of set up at this salon, but it's like the cast of a Guy Ritchie film came, sort of thugs came and interrupted that movie, and then were handily disposed of. So I love the way that the women kind of band together to protect their salon. So there are real stakes involved in it. I mean, do you have experience at a salon at all?
Yeah, like I did, not massively work. I did work in one for a little while after college, but in one of the kind of posher salons, one of the sort of higher end salons. I was a receptionist. I didn't cut hair or anything like that. But I go to a lot of those kind of more small local area salons just for, to get my hair blow dried or whatever. And they are like that's what Deadly Cuts is very much representative of. Like they're just very local, very casual, very fun. So they're funnier, I think, in short. So that was kind of the world I wanted to build, and then take the piss out of the more higher end places. But you're right, the lads do come in and are quite a kind of tonally different proposition. The Guy Ritchie reference is good, but it was tricky, because I had to make them a real threat, because if you're going to kill someone, you need the audience to see why, if you're going to get them on board with your characters. So it was a tricky balance to make having the girls like so fun and lively, but then also keep, as you say, the stakes high and the drama kind of real, so fun times.
What I also love about the film is the running thread of it's really working class versus the elites. And that really culminates in in the third act, where they're at big competition, where things could go awry. things can go awry and do, but that thread, I think is really, you know, along with the cast of characters from the Salon, which are so endearing in all their unique and unusual ways. But that working class versus the elites, I mean, that's like, I mean, I think that's it's a classic story, and I think it's so well handled, especially in that third act. Can you talk about like having that running thread, because it really is, it's the heart of the film, and it's like why I think that you're rooting so much for them in the end. You're rooting for them in the moment when everything can just either be won or lost. I mean, I love that thread.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm glad you liked it. I mean, I guess it goes back to what I really wanted this film to be about. And it is about, you know, structural inequality, like the serious end of things, and sort of class politics. Snobbery is something that really, really bothers me. You know, I really hate it. And the fact that it's in the hairdressing world is kind of hilarious, I think, you know, that there are these sort of tiers within what would seem like such a kind of, you know, not a serious world, I suppose. So it was really important for me to talk about that. So I had to kind of weaving that in along with the murder plotline was sort of all part of the same theme, which was around power and you know, the obstacles people from different worlds have to overcome to achieve anything, or to be heard, or to get into a position of power. And you know, obviously the girls had more hurdles than most at getting into a competition like hair, and you know, with all the social problems they had to deal with at home. So that was really where it all came from. I really wanted to tackle that, and it's ripe for making fun of. And you know, in Dublin we very much have a north side, south side, you know, class sort of divide. That's putting it very simplistically. And it was just, I hadn't really seen it done before, where you just had a lot of fun with that and just made fun of some people. And I like to punch up, so you get the elites, and it's just too easy.
Well, it's, I mean, you've probably noticed it. That sort of elitism also exists in the film festival world.
Right.
It really does. Certain film festivals that I have attended in the past, there is clearly an elitism at play. So you may experience this. I know that the film played, it's been playing festivals. It's been accepted into Shanghai and Monte Carlo Film Festival. Mm-hmm. So that's impressive. It's not commercially available, but what are your experiences like at festivals, and how are audiences responding to the film now?
Well, I kind of, you know, as it's a kind of broad comedy, I never really expected it to be a sort of a, you know, the more a high-end festival film as such. You know, it really is an audience's film, I think, more than anything. But actually how it worked out with, we were delayed with the pandemic and stuff like that, getting it finished. So it premiered in Dublin at the Dublin International Film Festival here back in March, and it was selected as the closing gala. And for me, that was just so perfect, because it is a Dublin film. There hasn't been a Dublin comedy in a long time. And I really did, it was important to me that Dublin responded well to it. And so the fact that it was selected for, I love DIF. It's a great festival over here if you ever get a chance to come. So for that to play the closing gala was just a brilliant launch pad, and the reaction was just brilliant. Like, it's just been so good. And from there it went to SIF in Seattle, which again, you know, I was kind of curious because it's so authentically Dublin, and the accents are super, super strong, and I didn't try to neutralize anything about it for an international audience in that way, you know what I mean? So I was so pleased that Americans got it. You know, they were able to understand it, first of all, and kind of got the humor, and the response over there was really, really positive and nice. And it was great just to see that it translated, you know, to the States. So that was pretty cool. And that's kind of it. Like, yeah, as you say, it's going to Shanghai next. So that'll be interesting. But it really, not that many people have seen it yet. I kind of have to remind myself. So far, so good. Responses have been what I wanted to hear. It made people laugh, you know, and that's kind of all you're setting out to do with a comedy at the end of the day.
Well, I am part Irish. proud to say. I want to say that Dublin has a personality, and I feel like it reminds me of when I tell people I'm from Detroit. There's definitely like a little bit of a chip on our shoulders, a little bit of a like. I like to say that people from Detroit have a highly tuned bullshit detector,
Right.
and I kind of think that Dublin is very similar. Does that sound accurate to you, or?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's, you're kind of saying the same thing that a lot of people in the States, we've had similar conversations. I think a lot of people in America, because I guess, I don't know Detroit, I've never been, but you are a kind of nation of immigrants as well. And there's so many Irish there, and, so many people with similar stories, I guess, that it does really seem to connect. And that kind of, as you say, like chip on the shoulder, slightly black humor, the sort of underdog mentality kind of comes into our humor here in Dublin in a very fun and endearing way. And I think that's probably what connects, maybe people like you in your city, or, other Americans. There definitely seems to be a connection there.
Well, I have to also compliment you on the name for the film. Because I think your first piece of marketing for an independent film is the name, right? And Deadly Cuts is not just a great name. I swear there's almost like you could look up like crazy names for salons, and I'm surprised I've never seen that one come up, you must have gone through maybe some ridiculous names in your head about what, the film could be called, but the names for salons are always surprising me. They show up online on lists, and it's hysterical. So can you tell me a little bit about the development of the name?
Yeah, that's hilarious that you noticed that. So a couple of things. The first thing to say is deadly, you may not know, is actually a slang in Dublin, very common slang in Dublin, and it means good. So deadly means brilliant, amazing. So that's deadly. So that's why it worked as a hair salon pun, and obviously worked for the theme of the film. So it just worked on so many levels. Again, we actually kind of worried about that one translating outside of Dublin, but I think it even works if you don't know the slang of deadly. But so there you go, you can start using deadly in your day-to-day life. But the names of salons, if I had one more person come up to me and say, why don't you call it Curl Up and Die, I'd have start tearing my hair out. Like, that was everybody's suggestion. But those hair puns, there's so many of them, and they're so fun to come up with. But what I kind of used it as in the end was, you may have noticed, like, the elite salons are never called names like that. They're always called, Carey, Gore. You know what I mean? Like, they're kind of very proper. They sound like finance companies almost. So when the girls show up at the big hair show, one of the first digs that's made at them is that they're a pun salon, because that always tends to be the smaller little outfits. But yeah, there's so much. I mean, hair puns, there's no end to them. You could write them all day.
Curl up and die. Oh my God.
You've never heard that?
No, I'll see stuff like that, and I think it's hilarious. It is. It gets your attention, and you know what it. I mean, this is where I can, get my hair done, and then also it's a memorable name. Yes. Rachel, thank you so much for being on the Film Strip podcast. Congrats on the festival tour, which seems is ongoing. But at some point, this film is going to come out commercially. Are you talking to distributors? Is there something in the works? I know that people that watch or listen to this are going to want to find out how they can seek out the film.
Absolutely, Chris. So it's we are just finalizing an American distributor at the moment. It's going to be out in the UK and Ireland towards the end of summer, and in the States we're going to be announcing that soon. We're just finalizing the dates, but for sure this year, probably towards the fall. So if you just keep an eye on the Deadly Cuts hashtag on Twitter is kind of your best bet at the moment for updates. Or just good old Google, you'll find the up-to-date information. And I probably should get a website for the film.
Why not? Yeah. Sure. It helps with the marketing.
Yeah.
Social media account on Instagram or whatever's going on. Rachel Carey, thank you so much for talking to us on the Film Strip podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.